Welcome to the Podkey summary of what's new in assessment on macOS from WWDC 2026. Apple's exam lockdown tools for macOS are getting a lot more defined, and the big idea is pretty simple. Make the Mac predictable, tightly controlled, and hard to tamper with before a test even starts. That means checking the device state up front, limiting what can run, trimming down the interface, and being careful about accessibility, so students who need support get it without opening side doors for everyone else. There's also a clear message for developers here. Use Apple's assessment framework directly. Keep it testable, and don't get cute with a homemade lockdown system. One of the most important pieces is the precondition check layer. An exam app can require system integrity protection, MDM enrollment, a single signed-in standard user account, and it can also require lockdown mode and iCloud private relay to be turned off before the session begins. That's basically Apple saying, the machine has to be in a known, hardened state first. Not halfway there, not close enough. If something doesn't pass, macOS throws an alert that tells the user what requirement wasn't met, and the assessment just doesn't proceed until the device complies. It's a very unglamorous feature. But honestly, this is where a lot of real security lives. You want the rules checked before the stakes go up. The accessibility part is handled with more nuance than a blunt on-off switch, which is good. Assessments can allow built-in services like switch control to stay available for students who actually need those accommodations. For users without accommodations, the framework can automatically quit those services and block them from relaunching during the exam. Apple also frames restrictions on user-generated accessibility content as a security measure. So only approved assistive technologies remain available, and those tools can't be repurposed to leak exam content. That balance matters because accessibility can't be treated like an afterthought, but exam integrity can't be treated like an optional extra either. There's also a lot of control over what the student actually sees on screen. Developers can turn on the menu bar, but only allow specific menu extras, like volume or Wi-Fi, while hiding the rest. They can even trim down the Apple menu. So maybe the only things left are something like sleep or about this Mac. Same story with the dock. You can filter it, so only approved apps appear. Finder and trash are always there in the background, but they stay inaccessible unless they've been explicitly added as participants. The result is a workspace that feels much narrower and more focused, which is exactly the point. Fewer visible pathways usually means fewer creative detours. Apple is also shutting off the little conveniences that could quietly give test takers extra help. The API can disable dictation, the emoji and symbols picker, and autofill. Those options disappear from menus, and they can't be used in text fields during the assessment. That stops automatic spelling correction, pre-filled information, or other assistive shortcuts from nudging somebody toward an answer. It also blocks structural input cues that might reveal how a character is composed, which matters in assessments where the whole point is unaided. Recall. It's one of those details that sounds tiny until you picture how many ways modern software tries to be helpful by default. The process restrictions are probably the most lockdown-sounding part of the whole thing. If a developer sets allow only participants to run, macOS will shut down non-essential processes when the assessment starts. What stays alive is the main exam app, any allow listed participant apps, and core system services. And if allows user script execution is disabled too, then shortcuts and automator actions are blocked. So a background script can't keep running and quietly capture data or interfere with the session. That closes off a bunch of side channels in one move. No clever little automation helper humming along out of sight. Apple's advice to developers is refreshingly direct here. Don't build your own custom lockdown stack if the automatic assessment configuration APIs already cover the job. The recommendation is to adopt the framework directly and strip out redundant code, because simpler usually means more reliable when security is involved. They also suggest starting permissive and tightening restrictions deliberately instead of flipping every switch at once and hoping nothing important breaks. Accessibility should be treated as a core requirement from the beginning, not a patch later. Developers are supposed to register for session transition callbacks so they can respond properly as the assessment state changes. And they should validate all of this on every macOS beta release, which sounds tedious because it is, but it's also how you catch regressions before exam day becomes everybody's worst morning. Taken together, these features show Apple aiming for something pretty practical. A secure testing environment that feels controlled without being mysterious. The Mac checks its own state, narrows the interface, limits automation, and makes room for legitimate accommodations in a structured way. For schools and testing platforms, that's the appeal. Less guesswork, fewer homemade hacks, and a clearer line between helpful computing and unfair assistance. That's the roundup for this one. If you're building assessment software on the Mac, the message is basically to trust the framework, test aggressively, and remember that every tiny convenience feature is a potential exam cheat sheet in disguise. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.